Hello everyone, welcome in Rzain Society. Today we are speaking about mastering data science in the gaming industry with Anthony Generoso Pascal. In this episode, we uncover data science journey, defining role, building a data team, data quality, privacy and analytics, A/B testing. Have a good one. Hello, everyone. I'm super excited today. I'm with one of the core members of Rzain Society, the newly rebranded Anthony Pascal. Anthony, welcome on the podcast. How are you today?
Hey Claire, thank you very much for having me. I'm good, thanks. Despite the horrendous weather, I'm actually quite good.
Oh my God, did you predicted it?
Well, I live in England, right? So at the end of the day, if it's not a bad weather, it's a weird day.
It's all about the statistical significance, you know. Okay, I will start with my bad joke, Anthony. Let's go deep into it. So today we are going to speak about behind the scene, offering insight into development and data science from you. So can you tell us a bit more about your journey, who you are, what you are doing? Tell us everything.
Sure. So I started as my first job in the gaming industry 5 years ago now. I think 5 years and a bit. As quality doing UA and monetization stuff. So I was spending money and making money. I got promoted as a lead. Then wanted to switch to more analytical stuff simply because my formation was I have a master's degree in psychology in the social and behavioral science and specifically related to research. So I had a lot of statistics and I loved it. So I was like, maybe I should do data. So I just started to switch data. I went to Scrum Master for a bit before they got acquired. Job ships before it went totally to the trash and went to Miniclip instead as a UA analytics manager. And during my journey here, I went from managing one person to basically handling the whole department. And then switched to puzzling after, which is like part of Miniclip, focusing on what I call evergreen puzzle game, which is those games that people play for years and years and years and still playing today, right? Think about it like Pick Your Cross is one of those things. Nonogram, I think the name is. So yeah, that's it. That's where I am right now. That's what I'm doing, and I'm the one-man data team. So I'm doing everything from the start to finish about like how to use the data, what data do we get, how, and designing all of that.
Wow, so that's really extensive. On how many games did you work? Did you count or?
That's a very good question. The main thing is I work in hyper casual, right? So when you launch multiple games a month, sometimes back in the days of the golden age of hyper casual, no, I've lost track. I think 2 digit for sure. That's an easy one. Commercial, I think I work on 3 or 4 titles. Puzzling, I work on like I think we have 6 titles now. Quality, I would say between 10 and 30. I give a big range because it's just wild. Because you have stuff launch title that don't launch or stuff like that, right? So
You know, I love how you are thinking about it first. You are okay, so it's maybe 2 digit. Then you know, like you make it even smaller. You add something. I feel like I'm speaking to ChatGPT actually.
yeah, it's called Anthony Learning. More efficient than learning.
That's great. And definitely a topic I think like I would like us to touch on. But first, like you changed a lot from UA to data engineering and so on. And I just want first to define what is for you data science, what is data analysis, what is data engineering. I'm from marketing, so sometimes I got super confused. So can you just tell us like what is it exactly?
I think the main thing is data engineering is very easy because everyone agrees on this. The guy that codes in whatever language your backend is and pull the data, store it nicely, manage plenty of complex things like Kafka or streaming assets, depending on what kind of technology you use. So those people are basically doing a lot of stuff to work with, like development, but related to data. And then it starts to become a bit blurry as soon as we pass that, right? Sometimes they're in charge of building the ETL for the data analysis. So they're in charge of making sure the data is structured, making charge of creating the pipeline, being sure that it doesn't use too much power, too much processing time, and structuring the whole thing so the data analysis data analyst or data scientist can then use it. But that depends on the company, that depends on priorities, that depends on a lot of things, right? And then it's already quite blurry, and then you talk about data analyst and data scientist. For me, a data analyst is a master of all trade, a jack of all trade, master of none, because sometimes you're going to do data engineering, sometimes you're going to do proper data analysis, which is trying to extract value from the data available to you. And sometimes you're going to data science, you're going to make prediction, you're going to make statistics, advanced statistics, or even machine learning, depending on how hardcore you want to go. Then you have data scientists, which basically do a very similar job, but for me, they should be doing more complex and advanced statistics and machine learning. But then again, it depends on the company and depends on the job role. And sometimes, most of the time, data analysts are less paid than data scientists. But some companies, I know they are doing the same job, which is a bit weird. Not especially for companies I work with, because we manage to always split parts. But I've talked with people, obviously, in the industry or in other industry, and sometimes it's very merged. So the data ground is very blurry, and everything links together in some degree.
Yes, and actually, it's a really good point. Thank you to explaining it, because even for I think for small studio, it doesn't always make sense, or they need to split the task of the data person, or even if they should focus more on, data analysis or data engineering and so on and so on. So what are the first steps you think like a mobile developer should take when setting up like a team, like a data team?
Setting up a data team, that's a vast question. I think the first point is understanding what's your use case, right? So in the case of gaming, the use case is gaming. Done. Let's focus on that, so we don't go too deep. So you need tools that speed up your analytics process, because you need to be quick to market, you need to be quick to do live ops, you need to be quick to gather insights. So you have tools like Firebase that exist on the market, for example, that can achieve that kind of thing. Obviously, you have other tools out there. Amplitude, I think, is one of them. Never used it, but I know it exists. I think Unity have one as well. Not sure if it's very good for mobile, but it's also there. And those tools are going to complement other tools like your MMP, Adjust, Outliers, Singular, anything you want to use, right? And those tools, depending on what you use, they have different use case, and you need to find someone that is able to find himself across all those tools, build a use case for each tool, like what do I want to achieve with this? Why? Like, do I want to do A/B tests? In which case, Firebase may be the best solution because everything is there, and it has a cloud save stuff, right? You can save data on the cloud. You have a real-time database system. It's probably not the best, but it's there in case you need to try out stuff. So when you set up for the first time, you need to find someone that's able to guide you, or you need to just use a thing that's doing everything. And I think the only one I'm thinking about right now is Firebase, because it has the A/B testing capabilities, which means that you don't need a data person to come in and be like, I want to change that factor and see how it impacts stuff. Even if the A/B testing capabilities of Firebase is a bit limited, I would say. I'm not going to go too much in detail into that. That's a rant for another day. I think Firebase also has some machine learning capabilities where you can change the parameters depending, and they're going to do a user segmentation based on parameter you change and try to optimize specific KPIs, which again, I'm not a huge fan of because of how they display data. But outside of that, like Firebase is a good tool for first go. But that depends on the size of studio. That depends on lots of things. So that was a long answer. I'm sorry, it was not a straightforward one.
No, I mean, it was a really complicated question, and it's actually one of the questions that comes the most in my clients. So I think it's super useful. Something else coming into the conversation really often is the granularity of the data change, basically. Did you change the way you are doing reporting based on a privacy change and some other things, or you are still looking at like track data, deterministic data, and so on? Like, how do you for instance would recommend studio to have a look at the data nowadays, for instance, for user acquisition?
Okay, so when you talk data, I was thinking about game analytics and UI analytics, obviously. Since you're going to push your question more towards the UI analytics side of things, I'll go there. Well, despite the changes in privacy, first of all, some people are still doing probabilistic attribution or fingerprinting, call it how you want. So you still have some form of user level data you can use here. Is it as good as it was? No, it's never going to be again. SK Network still has data that is usable, and you can still use SK Network data to provide insights. It's just, I call that the multi-layering padding. So instead of using one thing of data, which is your attribution, classic attribution data, you're going to have your attribution, you're going to pile on your SQL network data, and you're going to pile on your game analytics stack. And together, you all together all those things, even the MMM, if you have media mix modeling capabilities, or if you use a reseller, and all of those together are going to give you a picture of your game. And that transforms less into a science as we used to during the golden age of packaging, and more like a art form of mixing things together. It's science because it's like tons of data everywhere, but you have to somehow manage to create a picture, a coherent picture based on all the layer of data you have available, right?
100%. And I think like depending also on like even the product you're working on is super different. So I think you're 100% right. And like there is this question of setting up like the dashboard, but there is also the question about when you should do it. You worked on a lot of new games that worked or didn't work. When did you usually add, all the data framework and so on? And what are your advice on when and what to add, basically?
So there is a difference between what have I done in the past and what should be done. Because obviously there is a perfect world where everything is done perfectly and everything is fine and beautiful and we have rainbows and unicorn. And there is the real world where the only unicorn I know is from a website. And things are not as clean as you would like. In the optimum space, you want to think about data early on, not too early, because when you put your first line of code to make a cube move around, having data is not very useful at that point, right? It's when you reach a point where you have your prediction value there, you have your call loop here, all the animation are not all neat, all the information are not exactly there how you want. Maybe you don't have all your level if you make a puzzle game, but you have your core game here and you know exactly what the user are going to do. At this point, you should start working into your data, meaning defining the events, meaning defining what you want to capture from those, what are the KPIs you try to achieve. And if you have other games, because if it's your first game, that's another discussion, obviously, because you go totally in unknown territory. If you have other games, look at what you did in the past for those games. Look at what the KPIs of those games are, and don't forget to compare what you're going to do with what you did, especially if you stay within the same genre, which is, I think, the general advice when you make a new game, always stay within the same genre because you understand the genre more, you're more a professional of that genre. If you switch genre around, it's going to be complicated to compare an action RPG to your match 3 puzzle game. It's possible. You see have metric that exists that you can compare those two, but it's not exactly going to give you the same picture.
100%. And I think it totally makes sense. You need to have this statistical significance, and the game also need to be, kind of working without bugs and so on. So I'm fully aligned, like that you shouldn't add it like too early, but not too late as well.
Yeah, I think the bug thing is like if the game is buggy, we don't care. The idea is just you start putting the because it's better to put in like, even if the game is buggy and you're still refining everything, if the data is in, the data is in, that's it. If you have to put the data 1 week before the launch, it's going to be a massacre because you're going to face issues with the data, with your tools, you're going to discover stuff you didn't know about, you want to change your schema, and it's going to be an absolute mess. Like, it's important also to adapt based on the tool you're going to use, right? Some tools have different quirks, and obviously, depending on those quirks, you need to be flexible. I think one thing is test your integration. For the love of God, data quality is one of the core things why sometimes game analysts, data scientists, or data engineers are losing years of life, and why sometimes stakeholders are not confident towards the analytics they receive, right? It's like, oh, but your number don't make sense because of the things I know about my game. And you're like, yeah, but that's the data I have. I cannot create data out of thin air. If you don't give me clean data, I'm not going to create it. It doesn't exist. That's the end of the discussion. And there's one thing I've said in one of my previous jobs when I was in data stuff at Master, is someone wanted me to do some prediction stuff for financial reason. And I was like, yeah, sure. Or I can just work on designing a schema and then do that job, because the schema, if it's not there, the dev will not integrate it, which means it won't be there for the update that is needed, which means the data will not be there. The data will not exist. Like if the developer doesn't integrate the thing you want, you're going to miss data from the point where you need it to the point where you are going to actually integrate it. And that data is not something you can recover. It doesn't exist. You didn't capture it. That's the end of the discussion, end of the game. So integrate it. To go back to the question, which is when to do it. Integrate it when every core elements are there, not perfect, but just there. Test it thoroughly, like have a debug system, have a file system, a JSON, whatever you want to use, a log even, and make sure that everything you send is correct, which means that then the data analytics can go, okay, now I can do my job and it's fun. There is nothing worse than working with a pile of data that makes no sense because nobody tested it. And when you look at it, you're like, it doesn't make sense. I cannot work.
Absolutely, like data quality, data discrepancy. I think it makes everyone crazy, especially in pre-production, right? Especially when you need to decide if you kill or you keep a game. I mean, I feel for all studio working on this, and I think more people are in the room harder it gets. So totally aligned on this topic. So now let's go on the second phase. So your game is live, you get significant amount of DAU and so on, but you want to A/B test. What are your recommendations from a data perspective and tips to A/B test, for instance, a feature?
Oh boy. Well, often it's like any product stuff, right? If I have an idea for a feature, it's because I have a hypothesis behind it. So the question is, can I back up my hypothesis with some exploratory data? If we can give a good example, it's, I would like to have a step in my first time user experience. Okay, but why? The reason is always why, right? But it's because we have a big drop at that point, and I think it's because the user don't get the mechanic of hitting a monster with a sword or whatever. Okay, that's a good hypothesis. Do you have data to back it up? Yes, I have data. This is the first time user experience, and we see that massive drop there. Okay, great. So now we have an hypothesis. It's like a research, right? You have an hypothesis based on data, and you're going to test it to see if that only change is going to change the variable you're trying to change. What we call dependent variable traditionally in psychology or in research, the variable you're trying to impact. And then you can make an A/B test. Then it depends. How you make the A/B test depends on the tool you're using. How you measure it is also very important because you have a main target, which is, for example, I want people to be able to finish the first time user experience more often. I have that step so they can finish it. Fantastic. We have the clear definition of dependent variable, finishing the first time user experience. We have a clear what do we need to do. We have that step versus we don't have that step, and we compare them side by side. You measure it, you go it, and you're like, yeah, let's release that. Sounds good. It increased our first time user experience thing. Perfect. And then you, a month later, you look and you're like, why is my retention crashing? And there is a change that you make in the game that maybe impact other metrics that you didn't look at. So you're going to have to look at other metrics on the side as control over what's happening, right? Things like retention, LTV, and all those things. For the example of first time user experience, a bit, because usually if you have more people going through the funnel, it should be fine. And if there is a drop, it means that there is something after that making it worse. You may have inserted a bug by adding a step, programming. But having that mentality of, okay, what is my hypothesis? What is data that back up my hypothesis? What am I going to test it? What am I hoping to change? And once it's changed, compare it to other, check all the metrics, make sure everything seems to be in order. That's one of the metrics I want to change. The other one seems to be within the range of accept, like stuff I'm happy about. Let's push it.
Nice. And is it like a kind of framework that you saw that is kind of universal across all, the mobile game studio, or you will say like each mobile game studio really have their own framework?
Oh, well, I think the general idea is the same everywhere. The way I formulate it is something I think everyone does it in some way, shape, or form, but maybe not explicitly the way I said it. Let's put it that way.
Nice. So do you feel like it's something that, or is it something that is already automated as a process, or it's something where you need a human jumping in, to assess like the data quality, check back the result, and so on and so on?
Well, you always need to check your data quality before doing the A/B test. Data quality should always be, as soon as you talk analytics, data quality should be checked. That's not even a question.
It's a
Uh,
basic.
if I don't add that to my discussion, is I'm a good programmer and I don't repeat myself. Outside of that point, it depends on tool, right? You're going to have tool that give you some form of statistical significance, some form of actual statistics that tell you interval of confidence or how confident they are for the change to actually move the needle in the right direction. If your tool doesn't do it, you may need someone to be able to do it, and maybe you have someone that knows enough math and statistics inside to do it. It's not very complex, let's be honest. So I'll say it depends on the tool mostly. I always say if you do A/B tests, it's good to start on your own to see if there is value in it, or see what are the pain points, and then try to get someone to do them for you if you don't have any analytics team inside.
Yes, makes total sense. So Anthony, it's super interesting conversation, and like there is AI and privacy that are big topic on our industry. Do you feel like AI will impact like the privacy, or privacy will impact AI? Do you see a correlation between both, or you think like it's totally independent problems slash topic for data manager?
It depends what you mean by AI. If you mean statistical models like media mix modeling, for me, that's not AI, that's just statistics. If you mean ChatGPT as in large language model, as in neural networks, in which case, yes, that's AI. And privacy would impact AI directly or indirectly, either by the method in which we develop AI for. So having an AI systems that allow me to predict stuff based on inputs, or just by the data set you use to train your AI. Because if you use to train your AI based on the data set you had 5 years ago, or your machine learning, which is more statistic based, if you train your machine learning 5 years ago with the data and you try to train it now, the result may be vastly different due to the privacy changes in the environment that will change the data source of your models. So they are impact each other to some degree, but probably not the way. Probably not that much otherwise. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about like data sources for AI, right? Or machine learning training, or whatever you want to call it.
100%. Okay, so last question, but not the least. So, if you imagine yourself 30 years from now,
Oh
how will
boy.
you define a data manager? What will this person do?
You mean me in 30 years of defining a data manager?
Yes, and not on holidays in the beach, like take something work related.
Retired. No, so I think data moves fast because anything like, I mean, machine learning, everyone talks about AI and stuff, but there is data behind that. So even there, data keeps moving stuff forward. A data manager, maybe in a few years, we're going to have an easier point of entry for people, thanks to large language model, right? Today, you want to learn statistics, so you want to learn stuff, you can start with, obviously, Google search and ChatGPT together to be able to push you forward. 30 years is wild. I don't think I have any prediction for 30 years because things can change one day to another. Like I didn't know I needed ChatGPT GitHub Copilot, but it's ChatGPT behind it. I didn't know I needed GitHub Copilot until I used it. And I was like, oh Lord, that's amazing, and just constantly use it now. So new techs can happen and change the industry. I would say right now to be data manager, you need, well, first of all, to be a good manager if you have people under you. Seems a bit basic, but if you are direct, you need to be a good manager. Great. Now, as a data manager, I think you need to be able to find ways to optimize data architecture of your systems. And we're talking about data manager, which means for me, he is in charge of data engineering, data analysis, and data science as defined at the start of the discussion. And data architecture is going to be the science of how I structure the pipeline, what data do I want, what this caching is going to do, what are the aggregation I'm going to do, how can I optimize all of that to make sure I have the most reliable output with the most possible use for the same output, right? Because sometimes someone has a question, and those two questions is actually can be done in one simply. So for me, as of right now, that's what I would expect from someone being in data management, data architecture, and manager. And we've seen knowing how to do SQL, in 30 years. I'm not going that far.
Okay, I mean, makes sense, and I think it was a good answer actually. That we don't know what we don't know, and 30 years, it's insane. Like, to be honest, like even last year, I wouldn't have said that like this would have spiked up like this, because it's basically, like, I don't know if you know Akinator. Like, I used to have it when I was this little. Like, you could ask anything. It was a little genius. He will answer to you. So I think it was like maybe the first Chat GPT.
Oh boy, you're talking about Akinator, dear Lord.
Yes, you know this one, right?
Oh boy. Oof, oof. Oh no, I'm too old. Oh, that throws me back. Okay.
Okay, so Anthony, it was a pleasure to have you. Do you have anything else or any tips you want to share to the audience?
Yes, check your data quality for the love of God.
Okay, data quality, it will be the name of the podcast. Thank you, Anthony. It was a pleasure to have you with us. And thank you all for listening to us. And bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
You made it to the end. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode with our amazing Rzain Society. Stay tuned. Bye bye.